I recover loud.
And then I started actually overdosing, and I knew what was happening.
Yeah.
And I was, lucky, if you want to say it, enough to have the right people in the right place with the right tools to bring me out of that overdose. I'm Will Erdman, and I recover loud.
I recover loud. Let's go. I'm on a journey to discover the truth. Living life in recovery is lovely. You got the power in you. Surround yourself with positive energy. Judges hitting people with provocative penalties. Need to make a change. Advocate to change the laws. Prove to people that it's not insane. When you stand behind a cause, I'm here to speak about the pain. Recover loud to normalize the disease that's been killing all my friends and my family. The time is now to let it all go and recover loud. The benefit is healthy people, family and friends that never have to overdose ever again, never have to plead out to a lesser offense. I'm proud to say that I recover loud. I never thought I could, but I'm so proud that I discovered how to live my life again, controlling my own destiny. I needed recovery, I still need it desperately. Addiction never defined my identity. I recover loud, here to tell my own story. I recover proud, save a life of like 40. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud, here to tell my own story. I recover proud, save a life of like 40. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of Recover Loud. Tonight's guest is Will Erdman. Will, you traveled up here last night from New Hampshire, and it was the storm of the year for us. So I really appreciate you coming and sharing your story with us today. Welcome to Northern Maine.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate you having me on the show, and I've been in the Northeast for my entire life, so it was no big deal driving in a little bit of snow for something as important as this. Bringing awareness to what's going on in this country is super important, and you're doing a great job of that, so thanks for having me.
Thanks, Will.
I was actually born in Pennsylvania in the Allentown area to a lovely family. I resided in Massachusetts for a number of years and then met the woman of my dreams and moved to Connecticut with her. I came from a very supportive upper middle class family in the Allentown, Pennsylvania area.
One thing that you were telling me is, they gave you what you needed and they taught you the lessons that were important for our teenagers to learn. You still fell into using substances.
I did.
How did that happen? What was the first substance you used?
When I was like 12, 13-ish, I had drank with some friends. That was like my first, other than like a little, sip off a relative's beer or something like that when I was a kid. That was the first time I drank, nearly to blackout drunk. And, that happened 2 or 3 times, like 12-ish, 13. I think when I started high school, freshman year, I was a small fish in a big pond. We had just moved to a new area of the Allentown area. My parents built a house. I was in a new neighborhood, all new friends. I kind of quickly fell in with like an older crowd who they were driving. They had access to, marijuana, cannabis, and beer and alcohol, and I kind of quickly fell into that pattern of what the older kids are doing, like drinking on the weekends before the football game and smoking weed on the way to school.
What do you think led you to that crowd as opposed to people your own age? Any idea?
I kind of think, with the new neighborhood that being in high school, I think some of it probably had to do with feeling socially out of sync. Mm-hmm. I was in a very new place in a very new school, and that crowd seemed to be having fun. And I was drawn to having a sense of belonging and having a good time. I think that's kind of where it started before, the real consequences came in later.
It was interesting to me when you mentioned that. I did the same thing. I moved to Northern Maine my freshman year. I had experienced drinking with family, back in Massachusetts. And I kind of went to that crowd, because of the experience I had, because I knew they were having fun, having the parties. Those were the people I hung out with as well. And it was a quick, easy in with a group, and they accepted me. I think it was the first month I was in Northern Maine that I got invited to my first party. And I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
You know, drinking and smoking weed, that's what you said you were doing. Did it progress further while you were still in school?
Definitely. So that was kind of the thing, like drinking, smoking, we go to football games, like, you know, we'd smoke at school sometimes, that kind of stuff. As I got later in high school, and this was the time period, you know, I graduated high school in 2000. So later in high school was when ecstasy became a really big thing, at least in our area, and it was kind of everywhere. So I had access to that. You know, occasionally like cocaine would be around, so that was when I started dabbling with like that substance. And the first, you know, looking back now, the first real consequences were actually when I was 16, like, you know, junior year. I was driving, and I had been under the influence and had an accident. And literally a week later at a concert, I got popped by an undercover officer for having, you know, weed at the concert. So I actually crashed a car and then got arrested and put on probation, all in like a 2-week period. And when I was 16, at that time it was like, you know, this is sowing my wild oats. This is normal. This is like what boys do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you get scared straight?
Definitely not.
No.
And I had a great probation officer who was like very supportive, but you know, I try to find ways to work around the drug testing if possible. And that was a small bump in the road early on of, you know, my story.
When it comes to your cocaine use, was it something that you did often and a lot, or was that just an occasional thing? And do you feel that whatever there was, you would have said yes to it, or was it kind of specifically?
I think so the cocaine use kind of escalated with age and access, and some of that was like financial access too. You know, as I got older and had jobs where I was getting paid more money, I had more ability for like the more expensive substances like that.
Yeah.
And I was at that time, you know, like end of high school, beginning of college, when things really kind of kicked off, I was very much like terrified of, you know, the H word, opioids. You know, that was the period where this, like, you know, opioid crisis was kind of starting, and Oxy was everywhere.
Yeah.
That terrified me. So when you asked if like, would you do anything that was around, that was like the one thing, like that or anything had to do with like syringes, I was like, I'm out, man.
Yeah.
That changed, which we'll get to.
It's funny you said the H word, because, and I've mentioned it before on the show, I would never call it heroin. It was down, brown, dirt, you know, anything but. I'd even call it H, you know, because I could not admit that I was a heroin addict.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in my head I knew, or I thought I knew what a heroin addict looked like, and I didn't want to perceive myself that way.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I could actually accept and admit that I was a heroin addict that things were able to change, honestly. Which part changed later on? Was it the use of heroin or the use of syringes?
All the above. You know, kind of moving through my story of struggling towards recovery. I got out of college. I got a, you know, pretty good sales job. I had some other consequences. You know, I had been to treatment for my first time at 21, and that was a pit stop for me. You know, that was a 30-day break from the madness.
So did you graduate that 30-day? Was that a 30-day program? You completed it?
I did.
Is there anything you remember from that you learned that maybe you didn't put into practice right away, but now you can say, that's when I learned it?
Definitely, like 12-step programs were brought up. A lot of the curriculum associated with that 30-day was centered around, you know, 12-step. Yeah. And then, you know, going to AA and raising your hand when you got out and saying you needed help. That little nugget, you know, was put in the back of my head, but I took no action related to that. And I do distinctly remember, because I was 21 and I was in like a men's primary unit with guys that were like 40 years older than me and more, and they're like, "Oh, kid, get it now, and save yourself a lot of grief."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, dude, you are crazy if you think I'm like not gonna drink for the rest of my life. And I couldn't fathom that at 21.
Yeah, no, I get it. And you said you were going to bars early too, before you were 21.
Yeah, I had friends whose parents owned drinking establishments, bars, clubs, and I was able to, gain access to drink in public at like 18.
Yeah, and I was actually doing it here because right here, we're pretty close to the Canadian border.
Mm-hmm.
And back when I was in high school, we didn't need a passport.
Mm-hmm.
We could cross, and on the weekends, all of the high school kids were going to the clubs.
Yeah.
We had bars here. Obviously, we couldn't get in, everybody knew us. But they had clubs there, they were, dance clubs, and, there's all kinds of people. And the drinking age is 19. So at 17, a lot of us looked 19.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had 3 or 4 years drinking before I turned 21. And I stopped drinking for quite a while at 21 because I had plenty of experience. My wife got pregnant, and we just didn't drink.
Different priorities.
Yeah, and I was able to stop that for a time.
Mm.
And I for a long time I didn't consider myself an alcoholic until I went to an AA meeting, and I realized that I don't have a problem with alcohol unless I have alcohol, and then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So back to your story. You said some other consequences. What else did you deal with because of your use back then?
So 21 was my first inpatient 30-day stay, and that was a result of I left a bar and a designated driver had been driving my car, and I could have been killed in the car accident. This individual hit a tree. My head went out the window. Had that car traveled another 2 feet forward, my head would have went out the window and hit the tree. And as a result of the concussion, I still to this day do not know. I lost like 8 hours of memory, and I still don't know who was driving my car at that point. So that was one consequence.
Yeah.
Then, I got a DUI a little bit later in my 20s. That was another consequence that, triggered another detox and 30-day stay. Didn't take it seriously again.
Yeah.
The first time I sought recovery was late in my 20s, and I had 2 friends, in upstate New York at a friend's vacation home, and they left a bar late, both intoxicated, and the driver lost control of the car. Unfortunately, on impact, the passenger died on impact. Mm. And that was the first time I looked at what we were doing and what I was doing, which I was kind of next level. Myself and one other friend in this group are kind of like you said, you were at the club every day. Right. And then they would come to your club on the weekends. Yeah. I had a friend group that used a lot of substances, but they were out of school and they had jobs, and they weren't doing this every weeknight like I was. So I kind of took a look at what was happening and thought I could have been the driver and have had to deal with legal consequences. I could have been the passenger and been killed on impact, and that was the first time all those little nuggets from being in full 30-day programs that were largely 12-step based. I went into an AA meeting and raised my hand and said I needed help, and that I was afraid I was going to die. And that was the first time, with a lot of help, I was able to put some time together, as they say. And I was sober for almost 2.5 years at that point.
So was that the first friend you had lost to an alcohol or drug problem, or even use?
Yes, that was the first close friend, somebody in my circle.
Yeah.
I knew people attached to my family or my friend group, kind of a little bit more on the outskirts that had passed. And we didn't really get heavy into the opioid epidemic, which is it's really a public health crisis now, with fentanyl adulterating the whole drug supply and xylazine in the opioid heroin drug supply, which makes individuals that present as overdosing very complicated to help.
Yeah, and it seems like we got Narcan in the hands of people. Mm-hmm. When the fentanyl came out, and it switched up on us, and now that doesn't help with the xylazine, and more people are dying, and so it's almost like what's next? It's just going to be one poison after the other. Mm-hmm. Almost like somebody's trying to kill us.
Yeah. Well, I feel like they just keep finding things that are stronger and cheaper and they adulterate the drug supply with it. And
Yeah.
you know, xylazine, not only does it make somebody that presents as overdosing from opioids like very challenging to get involved in that situation. And individuals that are injecting that are ending up with necrotic tissue, and there's all these cases of amputations spiking across the country. It really, this is not original thought. Way smarter people than me have said this is now a public health crisis, and I wholeheartedly buy
absolutely.
that and you know, promote that idea.
Yeah, and you know, I thank God every day that I'm not using what's on the streets today. You know, it's poison, and you know, that doesn't come into our minds when we start using something. I mean, we knew, I knew that heroin would kill me. I still used it. People know that what's out there today can kill them. It's not going to stop them from using it. I'm just glad, because of the addict that I am, that I'm not using what's out there today.
I'm 100% with you. Yeah, part of my story is overdoses, and you know, because Narcan was at this time becoming readily available to the public. It wasn't quite over the counter, but a lot of folks could get access to it, and you know, the training for it is fairly simple. As you know, you help train people. Because of some good Samaritans in the right place at the right time, some amazing emergency services people, my family, and
how many times did you say you were overdosed or Narcan?
13 times before I found recovery. When I was serious about seeking recovery and in early recovery, that was like a big part of like what I was processing.
Right.
You know, and what does, you know, and all the therapy and step work and all of the stuff I've done over the years of being in recovery, you know, the one thing that's still hard to swallow and, you know, wrap my hand around is like all the lost time.
Yeah.
You know, particularly with like my family and friends, I can't give back time.
Right.
But the way that I've approached that, and with, again, like I said, therapy and a lot of help, and like I found this village of people in Massachusetts, like in early recovery, that really like propped me up, is I can just do the next right thing every day. I can show up when I say I'm going to show up. I can follow through. I can be an example to others. I can talk about my story openly. And you know, if what we're doing here really reaches one person and they find recovery as a result of that, awesome. But I think you're doing an amazing job of getting this out there, and I hope this, you know, resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. When I started the show, I thought if 50 of my friends thought it was cool, you know, that'd be awesome. And you know, the first episode within the first couple days hit 500 views on YouTube, and I thought, holy shit, you know, I think this is something I have to do, you know, because nobody else was doing it. I had the opportunity, and you know, I was interested in making a difference, you know. And you know, that's just one of the great gifts I've gotten from my recovery, you know. Yeah, I was a nice, helpful guy before, but I mean, I'm really passionate about, you know, trying to help people get out of this because I've seen the death. You know, I put on Facebook the other day with the number of friends I've lost over the last 5 years. I can't imagine not being among them had I kept using. You know? And it's sad. Just like time, you can't get that back. We can't get back the friends we've lost.
No.
You know, and everybody knows somebody that they've lost nowadays to this epidemic, and you know, that's what it takes to get them into recovery. You know, call somebody. You know, reach out, ask for help. Join Recovery on the Road. You know, we're always, no matter where people are, we can find the resources, get them connected to somebody. And that's why I started the Facebook group as well, because people, we all know how hard it is to ask for help. What did it take for you to reach out? And who did you first reach out to when you wanted to? Who did you talk to and reach out to?
So in my late 20s, the first time, with the car accident, my friend, it was like my family was there. And my family was a constant. They were there and supportive and loving.
So they knew about your use, and your family stayed together your whole life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't a split home.
No, my parents actually celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary this summer.
And that's amazing nowadays. Your mother and father, and they've been together this whole time, and they've been supportive of you.
Yeah, as well as my sister. She's 4 years younger than me. And
are you the only one in the family that struggles with substance use?
in my immediate family. Now, when you look at my extended family, my mom's family is an Irish Catholic family out of Philadelphia. She had like 40 first cousins before anybody passed away. And then on my dad's side, there were some folks that struggled with substance use and mental health as well. So, yeah, very much so. It's in both sides of my family. And
now, I'm the only one in my family that's been considered an alcoholic or an addict. I won't say I'm the only one that struggled. And I think that's because of the substances I was using. It's more looked upon as a problem when it's drugs than when it's alcohol, unfortunately. But basically addiction isn't necessarily about the substance. It's about the behaviors and the trauma and the growth and healing that we need. Can you take a partial? Anything? I mean, you're not the only bill I have. I guess you'll have to shut me off then. So you went to AA and you raised your hand. And you asked for help. What did you get for help from that group?
I actually, somebody that was a family friend from the community was in that meeting, and he ended up supporting me, being my sponsor. Great guy. He was very service-oriented sponsor. He wasn't so much like the book and the steps, which, whatever works for somebody is awesome. Right. I did end up coming across somebody that was more book and like working the step oriented, and I walked through that with him for the first time in my late 20s, and then I took other individuals through the steps. I didn't quite get it though. I didn't quite get the whole thing, even though I knew the first 164 pages inside and out, and I could walk others through the process. I think in the back of my mind, I almost still didn't believe that this is a forever thing for me.
Right.
And
so there were reservations.
Yep. And in my 30s, I thought, maybe I was never an alcoholic, or maybe all of the drug use was just like I said earlier, me sowing my wild oats. Right. And I tried drinking, and it was deceiving just the first couple of times. Had 2 or 3 beers, nothing bad happened, didn't drive drunk. That lasted for a week, maybe 2, and then I got blackout drunk, and I was trying to find drug dealers that I hadn't talked to in coming up on 3 years, and started, I landed back in another RTC for another 30-day program, got out, started bouncing in and out of AA, and met a young lady who I now know was not sober when we met, and she introduced me to what I had said earlier. It was always like a no-go for me. Was heroin, opioids, and intravenous use.
So you ended up using intravenously.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what it was like the first time with heroin?
Yeah, not to glorify it, but just to answer your question directly, it's like somebody just moves a warm blanket through your whole body and like a sense of ease and comfort. And that was how it felt.
Well, and the reason I ask is because, back in the 80s when I was growing up, they had all these, ads on TV, drugs are bad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you do them, they feel damn good. So you just assume it was a lie. And I think if we're going to tackle the problem, we need to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And the real problem is if you do drugs, you might like it too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what it was for me. It took all my pain. I first started on opiates because of a back injury, and I knew that once I took it, I could do whatever I wanted. I could play with kids. I could play pass with my son. I could take them places. We could have a good time. Because I had my kids before I ever started using. So they grew up while I was using. I'm living a life today I enjoy, when years ago, I was just waiting to die. And I knew that what I was doing could make that happen to me anytime.
And it's weird, at least for me, I intellectually knew that risk. And then I started actually overdosing, and I knew what was happening.
Yeah.
And I was, lucky, if you want to say it, enough to have the right people in the right place with the right tools to bring me out of that overdose. But, I have amazing parents. They're out doing things in their community. They're philanthropic. They're involved in all kinds of boards. They truly give back. My sister is just amazing, and her wife. My sister's out in Chicago. She's an orthopedic trauma surgeon.
Oh, wow.
When individuals are in horrific car crashes, she's the one in 8, 10, 12-hour surgeries, literally piecing their bodies back together. It's amazing. I would miss all that. I would have missed seeing her graduate medical school, and I would have missed seeing her start her career, and I would have missed the vacation that we planned to celebrate my parents' 50th anniversary. I would have missed the last 2.5 years with the woman of my dreams, and I would have never met her had I not gone through everything I had gone through, had I not gone to treatment in Connecticut, had I not landed in sober living in Massachusetts and turned around and started working in this field, which ultimately we got introduced at a concert through a friend I know from recovery. So to answer your question, I would have missed a lot, man.
Yeah. And I think it's important for us to sometimes think about that, just to remind us, and knowing what's on the streets today, we could throw it all away just like that, And I know for me, I'm not willing to do that.
I'm a regional sales manager for Chess Health. Chess Health is based out of East Rochester, New York, and we have solutions for the entire addiction management lifecycle. ePrevention is our web-based screening tool, which can deliver validated and custom screeners right to an individual's smartphone or a practitioner's iPad. eIntervention is a closed-loop electronic referral system, and eRecovery is the combination of our Connections app and our 24/7 peer team. In a couple of seconds, you will see an explainer video on Connections. There's been a lot of interest in Connections in the state of Maine, where I currently sit here with Michael. There's a strong use case for digital therapeutics and recovery support apps in rural areas. It really increases access for services.
Welcome to Connections, your personal recovery support tool. We know the recovery journey is unique for everyone. We also know it's challenging and sometimes lonely. This app is here to support you with coping tools, online group meetings, and 24/7 discussion forums moderated by a team of peer specialists. Here's a quick tour of what's at your fingertips. Start your day with a motivational thought. Track and celebrate your recovery achievements. In community, engage in text message discussions on fun and serious topics. It's a safe place to get and give support. Access motivational, educational, and self-care resources in the library. Join online support group meetings. There are types for everyone. Go to the inbox to secure message with staff. Learn and practice recovery skills with digital CBT, like dealing with triggers and overcoming negative thinking. To stay on track, go to Plan to set reminders and answer surveys. And in moments of crisis, use this red button for support. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. Connections is with you every step of the way.
So thank you for getting out into your community and doing what you can, promoting the apps to these rural areas. That's why I started Recovery Off the Road, because not everybody can get to the center of the county and here in Maine to get to these recovery centers. Sometimes people can be sitting, at their dealer's house, finish their last bag, and say, I don't want to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And when they have something in their hand and they can reach out in that moment, there's nothing like it. So recovery is changing, and going digital. And thanks for bringing that to my attention, and thanks for coming up and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Thanks for all you're doing.
Yeah, it's been nice meeting you.
Likewise.
Recover loud, everyone.
The benefit is healthy people, family and friends that never have to overdose ever again, never have to plead out to a lesser offense. I'm proud to say that I recover loud. I never thought I could, but I'm so proud that I discovered how to live my life again, controlling my own destiny. I needed recovery, I still need it desperately. Addiction never defined my identity. I recover loud, here to tell my own story. I recover proud, save a life of like 40. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud, I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud, I recover loud, here to tell my own story. I recover proud, save a life of like 40. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud, I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud, I recover loud.